So my name is Elida and I'm originally from El Salvador, and El Salvador is a very poor country, and that's where I grew up, in a country that where people really don't have a lot of means to, have nice meals every day. Pretty much every day you eat maybe rice and beans for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and or and make those two items into in different ways so that it seems like you're having something else, but it's really that's all people have to eat for the most part, and you eat whatever, pretty much the same thing every day. Um, Hardly anybody has cars. You have to be, pretty wealthy to be able to own a car. So you have to walk or take the bus. Buses are like so crowded to the rim. I mean, people coming out of the door, and so some people take trucks, pay a truck to drive places. And so the people go in the back of the truck and just stand there, hold on to whatever they can to be able to just be safe. And then just situations where you don't have things in the refrigerator to say, okay, this day I'm going to cook this, or this is going to be for dinner or for next week or anything like that. We have little stores that are like in your little community neighborhood, and they're not like your Safeway or even your Walmart, neighborhood Walmart or anything like that, but it's just like a house where they have little things that they sell to the people, like eggs or milk or just the essentials type things. And so then it's, so different than here. People don't, to tell you the truth, I didn't even know about dessert or snacks during the day until I came to the United States. I found out what desserts and what snacks were, because there's nothing like that over there for most people. And so just little things that we take for granted here, that are not there. Even showers, the water is so expensive, and so, well, expensive to everybody because people don't have a whole lot. A lot of people are, sell things on the market to be able to earn their daily bread. Seriously, it's like day by day that they're living. People talk about paycheck to paycheck. Here, over there is really day by day that you're living, trying to survive that way. And so it's a pretty rough, tough life, yet people seem content and happy. They truly don't know any better, and so they just do what it takes to be able to survive. And your houses are pretty much dirt floors, and I grew up in a house like that, and kind of like the block, like dirt block type house. And those our house wasn't the worst, to tell you the truth, but nothing like you see here at all. Dirt floors. Sometimes, well, we had to sleep on the couch, just a little couch that we had because there was no bed. Sometimes I had to sleep on the floor growing up. And I remember one night I was sleeping, and it was like a huge spider crawling in my area, and I just screamed. And roaches could be crawling in your bed or in your area and all of that. And so just our house was just pretty much a one room house. We didn't have the divided, this is the bedroom, this is the kitchen, and this is the living room. It's just one room, and you just have a little place to sleep, and that's how you live. My parents were pastors in a small church, and pastors don't make a lot of money. I think that's kind of around the world, but especially in El Salvador, it's if you're a pastor, you're poor. And so there was one time that we didn't have anything to eat, and I remember my parents never led us to believe we didn't have a whole lot. But I know that one day we didn't have anything, and someone knocked on the door. And my parents had prayed for, Lord, help us, what are we going to do? We have nothing today. And so someone knocked on the door. And when my mom opened the door, this boy said, "Oh, I have 2 bags of, food here." My parents had a fight, so my mom said, "No, just take it to the pastor," And so as how we were able to eat that week because of a fight that, a couple had, and, them saying, "Go ahead and take it to the pastors." And because of that, my parents were able to connect with World Vision. And I don't really even know how they connected with them, but they were able to find some help for our family. And in the form of I was able to go to school, and it was a Christian school. And so it really helped me because the school was very advanced, if you want to put it that way. And so I learned a lot, and mainly I learned to have a relationship with the Lord. And so my parents were very cautious with us, and were always very protective of us. And so finding that school was just a blessing for us. World Vision made a great impact in my life. Before World Vision, we really struggled with having a school that would provide a good education for me, and to be able to advance academically. And spiritually, it helped me in the area that the school was Christian, and so they had Bible studies, in the curriculum, and so forth, and they had services, throughout the week and so forth. I was also able to get clothing that that I didn't have before. I may have just something like a couple of dresses, and that was it. They provided for clothing for me and my brother, and they also provided for uniforms for me to go to school, which I probably couldn't have afforded it because they were pretty pricey. And so that's what I wore, every day, pretty much for the full time that I was in school. For Christmas, they would give us toys. And so in El Salvador, kids don't really have this big pile of toys under a tree. Kids don't even have a tree. There's not such a thing. Maybe a few families would be able to get trees for Christmas, but and much less presents. And so for Christmas, the big thing is kids get new clothes, and that's the only clothes that they get for the full year, a new set of, whatever your dress or pants or whatever it is. So, but as far as presents, we didn't have anything like that before World Vision. And then when we started with World Vision, we were able to get that, for Christmas. So that was awesome. There was a family that sponsored me, and, they would send letters back and forth. I sent letters too, like around Christmas, after they sent me a gift and so forth. I would send a thank you, letter to them. And as I grew up and was probably around 12 or 13 years old, I gave my life to the Lord, and it was a really neat thing. Like I said, I was, my parents were pastors, but one night we had like a family Bible study, and so we were praying and we were singing a song that talked about how Jesus loves me, and now I know that He saves, that He came for me, and He forgives my sins, and so I started to just really listen to the words of the song at that time. And so listening to the words, I started to realize, wow, this is really cool, that He loves me and that He came to save me. And tears started to go down my face, and so my dad noticed that. And so he looked at me and he said, would you like to give your life to the Lord? And so I said, yes, I want to give my life to the Lord. And so he prayed for me. And although I was a child and I hadn't done anything horrible in my life at that point, but there was rebellion in my heart. And so I remembered that after that day, I wasn't perfect by any means, but I certainly felt a change in my life, and I tended to be a little bit more obedient with my parents, and tended to just, not be so upset with little things and so forth. And that was, the beginning of my walk with the Lord. And after that, there was a horrible war going on in my country, a civil war. And our lives were really in a situation where we were always afraid of shootouts that could break out in any place. We were walking to the market, or if we were going home from school, there could be a shootout any time at any moment. And so I fear came to my heart in that way. And so I had to fight those fears that were within me, and for a long time. And even till today, I feel like I still have certain fears that were probably from that. And so there was one night that I was home. I stayed home. My parents went to church, because church over there is, or used to be, I think it still is, every single day. You had to, not had to, but you could go to church every single day. And so that night I stayed home because I had a lot of homework to do. And so I said, I'm going to stay home. And my parents said, okay. And I was old enough that I could stay home. And for some reason, I felt like I needed to pray. And so I knelt down and started to pray. And I was praying when the doorbell rang. And so I went and opened the window, not the door, because, I was taught not to. And so there were 4 armed men at the door, and these were guerrillas. And so they said, we need food and we need money. And so at that moment, it was like God gave me this strength and just a power to tell them, there's nothing here, you need to leave. And so you don't say that to those men. so, but I don't know what they saw, but they just looked at me and one by one turned around and left. And so I started to pray after that and say, Lord, thank you for helping me and protecting me tonight. 2 days later, I found out that there was a house that was burnt down near our home. And just it makes me wonder what happened, if it was, related to those men that were at my door that night. And so after that, my parents were always fearful of me being, of my life. And so they decided that, they will see about maybe sending me to the United States to see if, to keep me protected, in that way. And it was pretty scary. I would walk to school, and it was quite a long walk, maybe 15 minutes to get to school. And anything could happen during that time. You could have the guerrillas in the middle of the road burning a bus, or, burning a business or establishment or something. And you would have to run somewhere and hide and until everything is settled. It could take 5 minutes. It could take an hour or the whole day. And, it was just pretty scary. We would be in church and we would hear, shootouts outside going on, and we would have to, hide under the pews and just pray that nothing would happen to us. Guerrillas could come to your house any minute and pretty much tell you, you need to give us all your food, you need to give us all your money, and they could come in and take whatever they wanted inside. They were the guerrillas were drafting kids as young as 12. So that was another one of the reasons that my parents wanted me to, they would rather me be far away and safe than close and, not knowing what would happen. Pastors had to be careful, what they said in the pulpit, because they would, get offended if you said anything that was against them. And there were pastors that were killed, actually, because of saying things that sometimes that they didn't even mean to, offend them. But if they took offense, you could be a goner. So it was very, very tough times. And so we tried to get a visa, and doors opened up for me to actually get a visa, which is super hard, to get. But I came to the United States when I was just 16 years of age, and my mom came with me, but she left after 2 or 3 months. And so it was a very hard time for me to be left alone. Well, not necessarily alone, because I was with my cousin. She lived here in Washington, D.C. And so, but I remember coming back from the airport after my mom left, and I was just crying and trying to, just feel okay and think about, okay, maybe there is a future for me here, a better, place. And so after a while, I started to get used to, the new routine. I was so young, but I started working at that age, and I would just go and clean buildings, offices in the evening, and then go to school in the mornings, high school. And I found that the just the foundation that I received through World Vision's learning, studies, and the schooling that I received through World Vision helped me, because I did really well in high school. And also just that foundation of Christian living also helped me, because as you know, high schools can be very tough on kids, and the pressures of just doing what everybody else supposedly is doing. And so that helped me not get involved in all those things that could have taken me in the wrong road, and a long road. So after finishing high school, I started working for a family, trying to figure out how to get a permanent residency and to stay in the United States. I found a family that would sponsor me to be able to get my papers, my green card. And so I was very happy, and I said, oh, okay, maybe, I'll be able to become a citizen and be legalized and all that. And this was like a live-in situation where I was in their home pretty much the whole week. And it was very tough, because I would have to get up super early in the morning and cook their breakfast. And then I would have to stay up and clean the house. It was a huge house, and they were very meticulous, and it was just like any little piece of dust, it was like it had to be clean. And they had 2 kids, and there was a swimming pool in the backyard too, and the kids like to go swimming. And one day I had a lot to do, and I didn't know how am I going to get all of this done, because there was a list that I had to follow and complete that whole, every single day there was a list. And so I said, okay, what am I going to do? And one of the kids wanted to go swimming, and so I said, okay. And so because I wasn't there with the child, even though she was older, she wasn't, she was like 12, I think. But the mom got very, very upset that I was supposed to be out there, watching and her child. And so it was very tough, living with that family, but with the hope that they would provide, a sponsorship to become, legalized in the United States. I felt like, okay, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And so at that moment, I just kept on, and it came to a point where I said, enough is enough. I'm just not going to continue this. They told me they were going to do the papers themselves, because they were lawyers, both of them. And so I trusted that was happening, but I never really even signed anything, or so truly they never really started the process. And so it was almost 2 years, and nothing came from that. And so I decided that I was going to leave that place. And so after being very nervous and thinking, what are they going to say, because I felt very just intimidated by them. And so I decided that I need to do this for myself. And so I went up to them and I told them, I'm going to leave, I can't work for you anymore. And so they tried to intimidate me and said, well, what about if you get deported? That's going to be not good for you. So, we're trying to get your papers. And so I said, well, I just need to leave. And so at that point, they tried to get me to stay by saying that, oh, well, what about if you just come once or twice a week and help us? And so I decided that wasn't going to be, that I didn't want to do that. And so I left, and I was able to find another family that was wonderful, and the Lord brought them to me, and it was a similar situation where I was living in their home and taking care of their children. But they were super nice. They treated me like family, and they also were going to sponsor me, but I found my own lawyer to do that, and so I stayed with them for probably 2 years, and at that time they were they would tell me every time, we know that once you get your papers, you're going to move on with your life, and that's okay with us. We want you to go, and I know you're going to do great things and get ahead in life, and so they encouraged me that way. And so I in 1989, I was able to go back to my country after almost 10 years, and get my papers. And so it was a real amazing time, that, I was able to go back and see my family. And at that time, my parents were celebrating the church's anniversary, and so they had invited a missionary to preach at the church. And so as they came and preached, my parents invited them to come over to our house, and so they came, and when they saw me, they said, "Oh, do you live in the United States?" And I go, "Yes, that's where I live. I'm here just to, do some paperwork." And so they're like, "Oh, wow, we have a sister that lives in California, and she is building a big house, and she needs help with her son who has autism. And so would you be interested in that?" And I said, "Yes, I think so." And so she said, "Okay, I'll give you their phone number." And so they did. And I called them, and they said, "Well, you know what? We'd love to have you, but right now we already have a couple that's going to be living in this little, like a CETA type of, place next to their home. And so we really don't need you at this time." And I said, "Okay." So after that, my brother had moved to California, and so I continued to just live in Washington, D.C., and I was hired by a medical clinic, and so I worked there for, I think it was probably a year. And so working with them, I just learned a lot of things and was able to be with, some amazing people. And after that, so after a year, I felt like I needed to move to California. At that time, my dad had been visiting my brother in California, and so he said, "Your sister is going to move here to California." And he said, "Why? Did you talk to her?" He said, "No, I just feel, from the Lord that she's probably going to move here." And so, and then this family, that the missionaries that I had met in El Salvador, called my brother, and they said, actually no, after I called my brother, and I said, I like to move to California. And so he said, "Oh, well, really, that family called, and they said that you are that the place is available for you to move." And so we had decided that if that was going to be the case, that my brother was going to move also to, this was in San Francisco area, Bay Area. And so he said that he was wanting to move there too. And so it was kind of like the Lord was guiding my steps to make that move. And so they had called my brother and said, the casita is ready. If your sister wants to move and you want to move, this is the time. And that's exactly the time when I was ready to move to California. And so I said, okay. So I packed up my things and moved to California and to the Bay Area and helped this family. And my desire was to continue my education. And so I was able to enroll at the university in Hayward. And so because of the job that I had, it was pretty flexible for me to be able to go to school and work. And so I helped this family with their child. And then I had another job, another part-time job. And then I was going to school. So I finished my bachelor's degree at that time, and in a major in psychology. And so one of the professors told me that, well, since your major is psychology, you can't really do much with a degree with that. What are your plans for, after here? And so I really didn't know what my plans were. At that time, I had hoped that I would have been married and, have a family and all that. And because I was older and I was already in my late 20s. And so that hadn't happened. And just trying to do what's right before the Lord's eyes and, hoping to just stay pure for the day of my marriage. And so the days became longer and longer for me, and the loneliness set in, feeling like, okay, nothing is happening. What am I really going to do? And this professor told me, well, you could do a lot if you wanted to. And I said, well, you know what? I probably would like to get a master's degree. And so she looked at me and she said, why not a PhD? And so I was shocked that she would say that. And so I said, well, possibly. And but those words, kind of stuck in my head, and I started to think, if she has that confidence that I can, pursue a PhD, maybe I can. And so I decided that, okay, I'm going to see if I can, do that. And so I started to apply to different universities, and I was accepted in two of those universities that I applied to. And one of them was in San Francisco and another one was in Oregon. And so I said, maybe I'll choose the one in Oregon. And I decided on the one in Oregon because I thought, because it was cheaper. And so I said, okay, well, maybe I can work and then, pay, my schooling. And so, it'll be okay. Well, I decided to move to Oregon after the program accepted me. And I had decided to pursue a degree in school psychology. And so at that time, the school psychology program accepted me, and I also put in for counseling, another thing that I wanted to do. And so I went to visit, and I really liked the program and the people that were there, and they connected me with a mentor, and I moved there and not knowing anybody, and so feeling kind of lost again, not having even my brother there at that time or any family or anything. I called around to see, where am I going to live? And so I called the churches to find out, if they had anybody or actually I called clubs, not churches, but clubs, that were Christian at the school and at the University of Oregon. And so I found a club that connected me with someone that I could, room with. And so I was able to do that. And then after that, I was able to get a little studio apartment with through the university. And so 3-4 years later, I was able to finish my coursework for a PhD in school psychology, and the doors opened for me to move to Arizona to do my internship. And because I wanted to work and give back to my Hispanic community, and so I thought Arizona would be the best place for that. The Lord opened doors for me to have that internship and also do my dissertation at the same time. And so it was just so amazing how the Lord worked those things out. That time, I continued to have these lonely feelings because I still, hadn't found anybody to spend my life with, and so it was hard. The pressures of the world telling you that maybe something's wrong with you, and that maybe you're wasting your time waiting, and all of that. And so I felt like maybe this is not the right thing, and so, but I was so busy that I was just continuing on with my life. And even though the feeling of just what is happening with me, maybe there's something wrong with me, maybe you know maybe the Lord is not wanting me to be married. And so I was so focused on other things and myself too. And but later on, I started to just say, Lord, whatever you want. I wish to be married, but I'm going to leave it in your hands. And if you don't want me to be married, then that's fine. And started to focus on other things than myself. And so I started going to homeless ministry and helping out in the mornings, early mornings, and serving food, and just cooking food for the homeless and all of that. And in doing that, I was able to be friends with who is now my husband. And so we had met before at the church, but we didn't really have that time to really connect with each other and be friends and all that. And through, helping others, I was able to just, start a friendship with him. And so that's how it all started. And so at that time, I had finished my internship and gotten my doctorate degree in school psychology, and had started working. And so it took a couple or 3 years before my now husband, decided to pop the question and so forth. He says he was chasing me for 3 years, but I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, the Lord has been so amazing. I can say that even though I grew up in a Christian home, and I gave my life to the Lord, I still needed a savior. Growing up in a Christian home is not what it was all about. Doing exactly what's right and following God's guidelines, it was great, but that's not really what gave me salvation. That's not really what made me who I am, right? And so I know that it was hard that long wait to be married and to be able to stay pure and for my wedding night and all of that was hard. But looking hindsight, I realized that the Lord has guidelines not to make us feel like we're in a cage or anything like that, but really to protect us. And so, although following those guidelines is not what gives you salvation, it's really by grace that we're saved. But I can see how now I have the Lord's peace and his just his blessings, that are amazing in my life. So since I was older when I got married, and we weren't able to have children, the Lord continued to bless, and so I always wanted to have children, but that wasn't happening, and so I felt like, okay, what's the point then, right? And so I was working, and it was just my husband and I and our little dog, and so what happened is that one day I said, I feel like the Lord wants us to adopt, and so we had talked about that with my husband, and he said, I think that would be wonderful, if we could adopt. And so I felt like this is the time, this is the year I'm going to leave my work because we're going to adopt, even though we didn't really have a child, that we knew we could adopt. And so people ask me, so you have a baby, you have a child that you're going to adopt, because you're leaving like a really good job. And so I said, no, I don't. And so they were kind of like, okay. But I connected with an agency, and I didn't really go there to so that I could adopt a child, but I wanted to help with this agency that helped moms in crisis, women that for some reason were pregnant, and so that they helped them, with that process, with whatever they needed financially and so forth. And part of the program was to provide a way to have their child adopted out if that's what they wished. And so some of them, decided to do that. So in helping out one day, my family called me that one of my aunts had passed away in El Salvador, and so I wasn't sure whether I should go back or not. And so my husband said, well, I think you should, if you want to go. And I said, but we're waiting for a child, to see if, we can adopt, and how, I don't want to just leave, what if they call us, and so what's going to happen? And so he said, don't worry, we'll figure it out. And so I decided to go, and my my husband stayed, and sure enough, probably the weekend when I was going to come back, he called me and said, we have been chosen by a birth mom, and she wants her child to, for us to adopt her child. That and so I said, oh wow, okay. And so I was leaving that Saturday, and the appointment to meet her was on the Monday, that Monday coming up. And so I was able to, come back, and we met her, and she was just very excited, to be able to have a family that will, love and raise her child. And so, but I didn't know what had happened. And the director of the center told me, that this lady came to the to the center, and she said, she needed a test, I guess, to prove that she was pregnant. For some reason, they needed that for the hospital or for some help or whatever it was. And so after the exam, after the test or whatever they call it, she looked sad, and I said, well, why do you look sad? Do you not want to give your child for adoption? That's fine. You can do whatever your heart, tells you. Don't worry about it. And so she said no. And she said, why are you sad? And she said, I just don't know who would want my child. And so she said, why would you say that? She said, well, because the birth dad is from El Salvador, and she was Caucasian, and so she said, I don't know who would want him, and so she said, you know what? The director told her, we have so many families that would love to have your child, and so, as a matter of fact, I have a particular family that the wife is from El Salvador. And so she said, oh, really? She said, yes. And so she said, I'm not telling you need to choose them, but I'm saying that, I'm sure they would love to have your child, and many other families would as well. And so she said, okay. So she said, here's their profile. Take it home, think about it, and let us know. But if you don't feel like adopting out your child, it's okay. So she was working for an older lady, so she took her profile to the lady, and she told her, you know what, they gave me this profile. And so she started looking through the page, and she said, oh, she is from El Salvador. Wow. She said, this is fate. You need to go and choose them. And so she came back and she said, yes, I want them. And so we met her that Monday night. And it was probably 3 weeks later when our firstborn son was born. So it was the most amazing experience to be able to hold him in our hands and know that this child was so precious and that the Lord gave him to us. There were some other situations where we could have adopted, but the Lord totally closed up doors, including a situation of twins that we were so excited because, we were older. We're like, okay, twins, 2 in 1, this is wonderful. We don't have to wait longer. And so, but it turned out that the lady moved and she lost the twins, and so it was a very sad experience for us, and I'm sure for her too. But not even 6 months after our firstborn was born, we were in church one day, and someone that knew that we had adopted Joseph, he came up to us and he said, so are you planning to adopt more kids? And so we said we would love to. Yes, absolutely. He said, well, pray about this, because I have a niece who is pregnant and she is thinking about having her child, adopted. And we said, okay, definitely we'll pray for that. We prayed, and again, the Lord totally opened up doors for us to be able to meet this wonderful woman in Oregon. And so I was able to go back to Oregon, where I had, gone to school before, and met her, and she also decided that, she wanted us to adopt her child. And in May of the following year, we were able to adopt our second child, Micah. So um, it has been an amazing road. I can say that it's worth waiting for the Lord's leading and guidance. And again, although living by the Lord's guidance won't save us, it certainly does protect us, and brings blessing, and brings just so much security. I was able to find just that security and that companionship in the Holy Spirit. And now I understand why the Lord, or Jesus, before he left, he said, I'm going to go, but I'm going to leave you the Holy Spirit. And so, because he knows that as humans, there is that, we can have loneliness in our heart. And so, and that is probably why he said that, because he knew that we're prone to loneliness. And so having the Holy Spirit within you and within me helped me just continue on in my life, and realize that, okay, I'm not lonely. The Holy Spirit is with me, and I'm just going to keep on moving, and hoping, and putting my life in the Lord's hands, and realizing that yes, I make my mistakes. I'm not perfect. I try to do what's right, but I'm not perfect. I'm just forgiven. And so and that's what makes my life just so blessed and amazing, because of him, and not because of what I did or did not do. Certainly the Lord has just guided me, and protected me in so many ways. Now I realize that the importance of just doing it the Lord's way. I know that there are pressures in this world to go and do what supposedly everybody's doing, but and then when you're not following what the world is doing, you feel like you're going against the current, and that you're odd, that you are perhaps there's something wrong with you. But in the long run, you realize that doing it the way the Lord just determined it to be is to protect us, and to lead us in the path that will bring us peace ultimately. So I believe that the foundation that I received through World Vision, having me giving me that education in elementary school and junior high, helped me tremendously in acquiring my education here in the United States, because you get really quality education through World Vision, and that is the reason why when I moved here and went to high school, it didn't even seem that hard, because the education that I got over there was pretty solid. I was lost and lonely, and I was poor, and didn't have the opportunity that I have now. If it hadn't been for the Lord and World Vision, of course, that helped me in a way to place a vision in my mind, to know that I could achieve higher levels of success in life, and just the Lord's protection in my life. And even though I had so many transitions in my life, moving here when I was only 16 and without my parents, and being able to work hard and do what was required for me to get a higher education, and just knowing how the Lord has guided me through life and protected me, and just to realize that knowing Him is what has kept me in the right path, and just having been exempt from suffering so much. If I had gone in the wrong path, and not really followed, his guidelines, even though while I was going through it, it didn't feel that way. It felt like, oh, this is a struggle. What's the point in doing good? Now I see why the verse says, don't get tired of doing good, because in due time you will reap you will sow what you have worked for. And I see it now, and just, I guess, just to see how the Lord leads you in life, and as long as your focus is on Him and others and not yourself, because that's when I stumbled, when I looked at myself, poor me, and I'm so lonely, and I'm when am I ever going to get married, and when is this going to happen, and all of that. Am I ever going to be able to have children, and all of those things, and I have seen the Lord's protection in my life, living in a war-stricken country, and all the fears that brought about in my life, and knowing that the Lord really truly protected me through that whole situation, and gave me strength to be able to just trust Him, and know that he would be there for me, and His just knowing the Holy Spirit is my companionship, and that He will guide me in whatever situation comes my way.